In some houses, stories hide behind closed doors, and intentions are folded away in hearts that cannot be easily read. Innocent moments may turn into crossroads where hearts and minds change. She was nothing more than the wife of a man older than her by many years, and he was nothing more than a young man living among them in peace. But when the watchful eye was absent, something unexpected happened. And don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe to channel. Her name was Ruba, a woman in her early 30s, beautiful in features, composed in manner, and gentle in speech. She had been married for 5 years to a man 20 years her senior, a dignified man who worked in trade, often traveling and rarely staying at home. Their marriage was not born of love, but of stability, an escape from the loneliness that had consumed her after the death of her parents. In him, she found a pillar of support, and in his home, a warmth she had not known for years. Yet she did not realize that the coming years would carry what she had never anticipated. In the house lived a boy of 18 named Salem, her husband's son from a previous marriage. A shy young man, kind in nature, studying in high school. He lived quietly with his father and stepmother, never interfering, never causing trouble. His relationship with her was one of respect, nothing more. He always called her Aunt Ruba. Though she was not truly his aunt, it was his way of honoring his father's wife. As time passed, she began to see him as a younger brother, or even as a son she had never born. Until the day everything changed. Her husband left on a long business trip, one that might last weeks. He bid her farewell with his usual brief words and instructed his son, "Take care of the house and look after your Aunt Ruba." Ruba remained in the large house, almost alone. She had always relied on her husband for everything and was not used to managing the household tasks by herself, especially the heavy ones that required physical strength. Just 2 days after his departure, she tried to move a massive wardrobe in the bedroom. Her hand slipped and she fell to the ground, crying out in pain. Salem heard her voice and rushed to her side, finding her sitting on the floor, groaning. "Aunt, are you all right?" he asked. "I just slipped. I tried to move the wardrobe on my own. I guess I was too hasty. Leave it to me." "I can handle it," he replied. She stood up, still aching, and watched him quietly as he strained to lift the wardrobe and rearrange the room. In that moment, she felt something strange, not toward him, but toward herself. A realization that she had begun to depend on him, that he had become very close. The next day, she asked him to help carry some boxes down from the upper floor, and he agreed without hesitation. Then she asked him to install a light bulb, then to fix a door handle. Every day she found something new to ask of him. He did it all with a smile, happy to be of help. His intentions were pure, and nothing else crossed his mind. But she had begun to look at him differently. Night after night, she sat before the mirror, speaking to herself. How did he grow so quickly? He was once a quiet boy, and now he has the features and presence of a man. Then she would rise abruptly, shaking off her thoughts. What am I thinking? He is like my son. Yet she could not restrain the ideas that crept into her mind uninvited, especially as he too began to notice something unusual in her words, in her glances, in her repeated requests that were not always necessary. One night she asked him to help move the bed in her room, under the pretense that she wanted to clean behind it. He hesitated at first, but eventually agreed, thinking it was a simple task. He entered the room and began to push the bed while she stood behind him, giving instructions. But she was closer than she should have been, too close for the moment to feel ordinary. A sudden tension gripped him, heat rising in his face. He turned to her and asked in a low voice, "Are you all right?" She answered with a faint, mysterious smile. "I'm fine, just a little tired. Your presence helps me a lot." A heavy silence fell between them for a moment. Then he quickly let go of the bed and said, "I'm done. I'll go to my room now." He left with hurried steps, his heart pounding. He didn't know what was happening, but he felt something unnatural, something frightening. That night, he could not sleep as usual. He tossed and turned, restless, weighed down by guilt, though he had done nothing wrong. As for Ruba, she sat alone, staring into the void, asking herself, "Am I the one who has changed, or does loneliness drive a person to what they never expect?" But deep down, she knew something inside her had shifted, and matters were beginning to slip out of control. Heavy days passed after that night. Salem barely left his room except when necessary, and spoke to Ruba only in brief words. She, on the other hand, seemed to gradually return to her usual calm, going about her days as if nothing had happened. Yet he knew and she knew that the silence between them was not natural silence, it was a fragile curtain hiding something much greater. One evening, Salem returned from school exhausted. He opened the door quietly and entered, finding the apartment dark except for a faint light coming from the kitchen. He heard her voice calling from inside. "Salem, have you come back? Come, I've prepared a light dinner." He hesitated but walked slowly toward the kitchen. There he found her sitting at the table, wearing a simple dress he had never seen her in before. Avoiding her gaze, he said, "I was just going to grab something light and head to bed. I have an important exam tomorrow." She smiled softly and said, "Sit for a little while. Just 5 minutes won't hurt." Despite his tension, he sat down. She began asking him about his studies, his life, his future. He answered nervously, trying not to meet her eyes for long. Then suddenly, she asked him a question he never expected. "Do you think I'm a bad woman, Salem?" He looked at her in shock, not knowing how to respond. Before he could speak, she continued, "I'm not asking for anything. I just want to know, have I lost your respect?" He shook his head and said honestly, "No. I just don't understand what is happening or what you want from me." Silence fell, then she whispered softly, "I'm just lonely." That word was enough. He stood up quickly and said sharply, "Don't say such things to me. I am your husband's son. I live here only because I'm studying, nothing more. Please don't put me in this position again." Then he left the kitchen, leaving her sitting in the dark. The next morning, Ruba saw a message on her phone from her husband. "My return has been delayed for another week. Take care of the house." She closed the phone and sat on the couch, breathing deeply, feeling a weight pressing on her chest. Perhaps she had not intended anything, perhaps loneliness truly changes a person. But she had begun to fear herself. Days passed, and Salem started avoiding the house as much as possible. He spent longer hours at the library, at school, even wandering the streets. He was afraid to return and see her, or to find himself in another situation he could not escape. But things did not remain still. One evening, while the sky poured with heavy rain, Salem returned home late. He opened the door and found her waiting in the living room, standing there as if she had been expecting him for some time. With concern, he asked, "Did something happen?" She quickly replied, "I was worried. You were late, and the weather is terrible." Then she stepped closer and said in a low voice, "Salem, I'm sorry." He turned his face away and was about to leave, but she held his arm and said, "Wait. Please don't leave me looking this week." He looked at her once, and in her eyes he saw a tear. Despite being moved, he answered calmly, "Aunt Ruba, if you need anything, ask my father. I cannot be a replacement for anyone, and I don't want to lose your respect, or my own." Then he gently freed his arm, went to his room, and closed the door. That night, Ruba did not sleep. She sat by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, remembering her moments of weakness, his gaze, his reaction, his words. She realized she was approaching an abyss she had not known she was walking toward. 2 days later, her husband returned suddenly without telling anyone. He opened the door quietly and entered. The first to see him was Salem, who said in surprise, "Father, didn't you say another week?" The father replied coldly, I finished my work early. I wanted to surprise you both. He went into his room, then came out minutes later, holding Ruba's phone, which she had left in an old travel bag. He had been searching for a charger, but instead found an unsent voice message. He opened it, and her voice came out, trembling with tears. I don't want to be bad, but he makes me feel that I am still a woman, not a shadow. I am lost. I don't know if I am wrong or just broken. The phone slipped from his hand, and he sat down without a word. The next morning, Salem woke to find his bag packed by the door. His father told him, "Go continue your studies at your mother's. This is not the right time to stay here." Salem understood everything and did not argue. He left in silence. As for Ruba, she remained in the house pale and silent, saying nothing, asking nothing. That evening her husband told her, "I no longer see the woman I thought was wise, but a lost shadow of a woman who almost destroyed everything. I do not shout, I do not strike, but I lose trust, and that is harsher than any punishment." The next morning, she found the divorce papers on the table. No arguments, no shouting, just a silent ending. Days passed. Her name disappeared from conversations and she vanished from the neighborhood. No one knew where she had gone. But Salem never forgot. Whenever he stood in a moment of silence, he remembered her, remembered how a single moment, had he not stood firm, could have cost him everything. He understood then that a man is not measured by his age,